council votes, I know we just talked about it, I know you just talked about this, but given the city council votes, are you going to go forward with firing Gregory Joseph?
No, I'm not firing anybody. I'm not firing anyone. Yeah. I'm supporting a city employee that is now is now part of a community of city employees that have been disrespected, villainized, discriminated against by prejudices, conscious bias, unconscious bias, sexism, the list goes on. And now we have a community of people where Gregory is now a part of. This is a problem. This is nothing to celebrate in the city of New Orleans, not the city that I love, not the welcome city that I've championed and led on. This doesn't speak to my values at all. It's unconstitutional. This is a problem. But this has been the course, particularly of Moreno and Morrell. And it's very disappointing. And Moreno begged me to stay out of that council race, begged me, because she couldn't find herself to work with those who were in the running. But Morrell gets elected, and I don't see any work being done. It's disappointing. It's disappointing with me serving on the New Orleans City Council for 6 years, elected to fill a special seat, re-elected without any opposition, but made progress to the point I went from a district seat to the mayor of the city of New Orleans. And I'm not from the city of New Orleans. But my soul is all right here. So I'm looking to get back to that type of leadership, but even when I hear from my employees, those that have been a part of the city fabric for decades, have never seen an environment like we are living through and that they're working through right now.
One more question. Just when it comes to your pick for superintendent, do you feel confident that the city council will confirm Ann Kirkpatrick?
Well, based on the city council's actions and even their words, they pushed for collectively a national search. They pushed down initially local leadership. They talked about the charter amendment, the change that they championed, that the public granted. They talked about the confirmation process that they built into that language. They talked about a process that went national to render the best that we could to lead this department. They talked about community engagement and community involvement, where the firm went even deeper. So I gave them everything they asked for, and that delivered someone who has the experience, that can operate in this toxic environment that they've also created, along with other branches of government at the federal level, that continue to demonstrate and villainize and create the same hostile environment. But Kirkpatrick comes to us again with experience that is undeniable, and experience that can work within, again, this environment, and experience that I also can trust and lean on. Because, again, I have to look at the whole. And I have no doubt about it that the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department will continue to show up and continue to demonstrate what they've always done, protecting this community.
Cassie, with WDSU and then Ben.
Okay, perfect. Well, the city council a couple weeks ago passed an ordinance that basically escrows the operating budget for the city attorney's office and gives the council the right to say you can't have any outside or additional expenses for the department, because they say that there's not enough communication going back and forth. What are your thoughts with that?
Well, the city attorney's office serves both the New Orleans City Council and the executive branch of government, so both sides of that. Freezing budgets have never benefited anything. They don't work. They set back progress that the people need us to push forward. We have examples yet again of this practice. Done before, slowing up progress, and then yelling, we're not moving fast enough. It's a tactic, it's a distraction, it's hurtful, it's harmful. And it's to a law department, hardworking men and women who show up every single day.
There's a lot of litigation that's been going back and forth, whether it's Emperors or, the consent decree is one of them. Do you know how much lawsuits the city's involved in right now?
Off the top, no.
Are you involved in a lot of the decision-making when it comes to that, or are you connected with the
We have a
city
law
attorney's
department for a reason. I am not the city attorney. I'm the mayor of the city of New Orleans. I make sure that I have qualified individuals in place to do the city's work. This is one area as well.
Thank you.
Freezes never generate progress. They hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, will Mr. Joseph be attending the October 4th hearing to mount the defense as prescribed under the charter?
The city of New Orleans will always comply based on, if we need to show up, we'll show up.
Well, I mean, will you call witnesses, present evidence?
I'm not going into detail about all of that particular date you're talking about. I'm not going into detail. Bottom line is, we're going to show up and we're going to make sure that Gregory Joseph is not only represented, but is supported.
Okay, and I wanted to clarify a couple things you had mentioned just a moment ago. You said something about something being unconstitutional within the environment. Can you explain what you meant by
What I
that?
was speaking about is what you're talking about, this hearing, the process that's outlined, there's gray area. I believe that there's level of things that are unconstitutional. That's my opinion. That's what I'm sharing at this time. Thank you.
I mean, can you elaborate on what you find to be unconstitutional about it?
The whole process, period. Soup to nuts, the whole process, relative to my employee. Yes, never happened before.
Okay, and then you said Moreno begged you to stay out of that council race. I'm sorry, can you just clarify?
I've shared that with you already.
Okay.
Moreno begged me to stay out of the at-large race, council race.
The last one.
Sir,
Okay.
I gave it to
Sure I
you.
understand
Sir,
correctly.
I gave it to you.
Okay.
David, if you will.
Regarding Gregory Joseph and the mailers, what did you know regarding the mailers and when did you know about it?
What did I know? I knew that we were sharing information with the public relative to results and progress that was made, capping it for the year of 2022, but absolutely bringing forth progress that we've made, particularly over the past 3 years. We lived through COVID, so it was a proper time coming out of 2022 and into 23 to remind the public, to educate them on the progress, to build hope so that they know that the city is working on their behalf. That's exactly what we did, and it was appreciated.
We just learned that Sarah Porteous has resigned from
Yes.
the DPW.
Yes.
Can you talk to losing that staff, that very important staff member,
Absolutely.
as well as the possibility of losing Gregory Joseph? If
We're not
the
losing
council-
Gregory Joseph, number one, but number two, Ms. Sarah Proteus is an example. Someone that shows up every single day giving it all to the city of New Orleans. Every single time. Making the sacrifices to ensure that we get infrastructure projects out of the door. Getting them to notices to proceed. Aligning it with what has to happen in order to ensure that we keep the federal dollars that we've worked so hard not only to receive, but to put to use for the citizens of this community. Sarah has been an example of a city employee going before the New Orleans City Council only to be villainized, only to be disrespected, only to be an example of an employee operating in a hostile work environment. And also an example of having it up to here. People can only take so much. She's one of them. Someone that I definitely do not want to see go. She knows that. She knew that from day one when she shared it with me. But she's going to go home. She has nowhere, meaning she hadn't thought about the next, because she's going to go home and be with her children, to get loved on and to be built up from within. What we're doing as city employees, it's damaging, and it damages the soul. Sarah is an example of that.
You mentioned that the council is pouring hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars into these investigations. Do you agree that the mailers also use hundreds of thousands or thousands of dollars of taxpayer dollars?
Not at all, and that's demonstrated. No, not at all. And bottom line, it was to educate and inform the residents of the city of New Orleans on work that was legitimate. That's what those mailers did, and they were appreciated.
Fox 8.
Madam Mayor, earlier in speaking about progress in some crime categories, you mentioned no reason to turn. Now that said, if confirmed and aside from the consent decree requirements, will Chief Ann Kirkpatrick have total autonomy in running the NOPD if she's confirmed?
The superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department has responsibility to run the day-to-day operations of the New Orleans Police Department. It is that expectation that our superintendent will continue to do just that.
You will be rolling out your budget proposal for '24 soon. Have you talked to Chief Kirkpatrick about the NOPD budget as you looked it over? Will she have input in what you propose?
So, of course, leadership will have input in what is proposed, and that doesn't just come from one. It comes from a team of leadership, and that's what we have within the New Orleans Police Department. But if you ask about the budget for NOPD, Kirkpatrick is coming in with not only support of the budget, but very happy about the investments that are being made within the New Orleans Police Department, from a retention standpoint to a recruitment standpoint, and bottom line, just the tools, resources, and force multipliers that the city of New Orleans has made investments in. It sets it up for a leader to come because the talent is here. Now we have the resources in place, and we're going to make sure that we move not only our department forward, but move the city forward.
Just one follow-up. You say she will have autonomy, but during the interview process, did you talk to her about, like, a few areas that you would hope that she would focus on initially if she is confirmed?
Well, as I mentioned, part of the existing conditions and the environment that are priorities for me as it relates to the NOPD is the area of the consent decree. That area is one that will determine the impact, meaning whether we move forward or not. It's a burden. It's now moved to being abusive. And we're seeing how that's played out, how it's playing out. And we're looking forward to, getting from the judge just clear areas that we need to focus on. Stay out of the operations and the day-to-day, stay in the lane. Let's focus on those key areas, set those goals, meet them, and get to self-compliance. That's where we are, and we're pushing towards that end, to self-compliance. I've said that over and over, but not just saying it. I've taken action as it relates to that. The New Orleans Police Department is ready for self-monitoring.
Axios.
Hi, Mayor. You previously mentioned the city was working with the ownership of Plaza Tower to get that back on the tax rolls to help them as they find a new buyer. How is that process going?
So I didn't check in on that before coming out here this morning, but as of yesterday, that just the progress continues to be made, and the city of New Orleans, again, wanting to hold the ownership accountable and also working with so that, one, they can close a deal or a transaction that will put that property back on the tax rolls. I think 30 years plus being dormant, it's time, and we're wanting to see that happen.
And you had mentioned that there was one potential buyer that seemed promising. Is that potential buyer still working with the new, or with the ownership?
I'll have to get back with you on that, just so that I'm matter of fact on it. I don't want to speak out of context.
Thank you.
Last but not least, WGNO.
I know you said you didn't want to discuss the specifics of the October 3rd hearing, but can you answer if you plan on having counsel there and if Joseph plans to have an attorney there?
He can speak for himself, but what I will say is that the city of New Orleans will be supporting Gregory Joseph as a city employee that is competent and very effective in the day-to-day progress that the city of New Orleans is making.
Okay, just switching gears real quick to Ms. Kirkpatrick. It was revealed that she won a wrongful termination lawsuit after proving she was fired by the Oakland Police Commission for corruption and abuse of power. What were your thoughts about that, and did that kind of aid in your decision in thinking that she would be able to execute this constitutional policing?
So, in regards to that, it goes back to experience. Someone who has experience in working in environments that are aligned with ours. And so, with that, I know that she has the stamina, she has what it takes, a fearless attitude and approach and professionalism. Bottom line, she has the experience. That's what I went on, and that's what we're gonna have.
Thank you all.
Thanks, all.